Okay, so our next speaker will be from Dr. Ernest, who has a BA and an MA from the University of Chicago and a PhD in Buddhist Studies from HKU. He's the CEO of the Tung Lin Kok Yuen Canada Society. The Tung Lin Kok Yuen Canada Society is a Buddhist charity based in Greater Vancouver, and it's dedicated to Buddhist teachings, education, and community services for already more than 30 years. Ernest is a Buddhist chaplain with the UMCA at the University of British Columbia and the Multi-Faith Center at SFU, and also a denominational visitor to healthcare institutes. He engages in religious and spiritual care, teaches mindfulness, and guides forest therapy. He focuses on the well-being of communities by volunteering at universities and charities, and he also specializes in connecting wisdom, traditions, and spirituality in contemporary society. His research publications include Leveraging Happiness and Self-Sufficiency in Chinese and Introduction to Buddhist Economics in English, and indeed I have used that in my Introduction to Buddhist Ethics course to good effect. He received the 3 refuges, 5 precepts, and bodhisattva vows under the Chan tradition. Received the 3 jewels, 5 mindfulness trainings and 14 mindfulness trainings from Plum Village, as well as 16 precepts and Buddhist chaplaincy training with the Upaya Zen Center. He's ordained as a lay minister or a Buddhist chaplain at the Upaya Center and the Zen Center. He's also provisional supervisor, educator, certified spiritual care practitioner, and also completed a 2nd advanced for spiritual psychotherapy education with CASC. He's also a qualified mindfulness teacher and a certified ANFT forest therapy guide. And today he will be speaking on the topic of No Mud, No Lotus, the enduring legacy of compassion and wisdom in contemporary Buddhist organizations. So welcome, Dr. Ng.
I always regret when I submit a long bios. Good afternoon, everyone. Amy is going to help me load the presentation. I think that my perspective will be a little bit different because I'm coming from kind of a researcher, practitioner point of view, trying to share with you maybe some reflections or some questions, explorations I have working and serving in a Buddhist charity organizations and the temple. So maybe I begin from some kind of a reflections or some questions. Right? When we're thinking about tracing the threads, I think part of my curiosity is like what is actually really being transmitted? Are we talking about knowledge? We have a lot of discussions on the sutra and on some of the key concepts in the morning and in the afternoon. Like whether the wisdoms or the compassions are being transmitted, like how do we do it? Like what kind of forms and substance are we talking about? And of course, across different lineages, some of the lineages like the monastics are the legitimate successors. Like some of the lay practitioners can be part of it, or maybe scholars like in the rooms are also part of the traditions and other part of the succession process. We talk a lot about lineage, but it may be important to some schools, but it may not be actually not quite so to some school. But of course, like a lineage have, from an organizational point of view, it can amass resources. It can ties into the past, like present and future. But to some extent also it could become a boundaries or some limitation or restriction. How do we practice? Of course, like when we talk about like looking into the wisdoms and the practice of Buddhism, there are more inward-looking approach, and then also, of course, like in contemporary eras, we talk a lot about engaged Buddhism, focusing on the textual studies, or we focusing on the practice. Some of the organizations may be large, like some of them may be really small. Forest meaning really being in the secluded areas, or are we talking about engaging in the urban areas. There are different kind of practices, as I will share with you later on. Like some of them may be ritual, some of them may be relating to chanting, and then some of them may be more reflective, contemplative, meditative practices. To change or not to change, right? Traditions are very important. But like, how do we carry on the past, the traditions from the past, and then also be able to adopt with the new technologies, or be able to adjust to the contemporary needs? Like if you look at the scroll here, it's actually one of the scroll from the Chan traditions. It's from Venerable Xu Yun's to another the 8th generations of the Huaiyang school. So on the very right, you see they talk about the right Dharma. Like the right Dharma eyes, right? So what is actually the right Dharma? Like what is actually the true Dharma that we are transmitting across time and space? So if we kind of continue this debate, like I have in the past engaged in some of the conversation, in hindsight, or maybe after years of reflections, I thought like maybe it's actually not really the right direction. Why is that? Because there are, I think over the last decades, there are a lot of conversations like in Hong Kong, like Taiwan, or elsewhere, even in Europe, like talk about how we can integrate the Buddhist ideals, like values into management. So on the one direction, like how the Buddhist values can influence organizations in the worldly space, but on the other directions, like how some of those concepts may inspire or inform Buddhist organization. Of course, like what kind of values Buddhist tradition has can lead a different kind of way to think about continuity, successions, and transformation. So of course, like, there are a lot of debate about like resources, like organizational theories, and so on and so forth. And of course, like if we talk about like even a temple or organization being organized like, in societies, we need to think about like compliance, like vision, mission, and strategy, and so on and so forth. So there are some of these like conversations and scholarly research being discussed. Is the wisdom approach informing us like how Buddhists or other organizations can be operated? Maybe I also wrote another paper talking about the essence of dependent arising. So how do we see the worldly organizations or the Buddhist organizations from an interdependent perspectives? But after some of these discussions, I realized probably this is still not the point. So what is actually I'm trying to suggest here? If I look back at the very, very beginning, some of you may have heard of the story. The Buddha did not want to teach the Dharma like, after he was enlightened. But he was actually invited in the Yakana Sutra. He was invited to spread the Dharma because like he reflected on, no matter like what kind of lotus, like whether you're still immersed in the water, like at the water level, surface level, or above, like you benefit from the Dharma differently. So my argument here is like from the very, very beginning, the Buddha taught and beginning this journey of transmissions and succession because of his compassion. His compassion of human sufferings or the sufferings being experienced by the sentient beings, and most importantly is how to alleviate or transcend from the suffering. And my second argument is like while we are very, very focused on forms, but substance may be more important than the form. The ultimate substance from the Buddha's teachings is the compassion. This quote from the Praise of the Diamond Sutra by the Master Fu talk about the compassion is the origin of Buddhahood. Even though like the Sumeru, the Mount Sumeru is great and miraculous, but the formless is actually its real presence. And the substance of the Dharma is expressed in the moral discipline, the mental concentration and wisdom, and the compassionate acts to alleviate like, all the sufferings in oneself and other. And for Buddhism to truly succeed over time and space, like, we must adhere to the Buddhist compassionate response to suffering. And the Buddhist teachings and practices prosper in the past, present, and future, when motivated by compassion and guided by wisdom towards suffering. So this is my hypothesis, or maybe that's also what I'm trying to explore. And in the later slides, I try to use Tung Lin Kok Yuen and also some other Buddhist organizations that I have personally experience with to try to maybe use it as an illustration, but not necessarily like a proof for why this may make sense. So this is actually a practice out from Tung Lin Kok Yuen, from Venerable Gunbun, from the, I call it like the five, I translate it as the 5 assemblies of reciting the name of the Dharma, of the Buddha. This is a Pure Land practice, but Venerable Gunbun himself is the 44th Dharma heirs in the Ninji school, the Chan school. So this is actually a very interesting intersections. Like if we think about the traditions in different schools, but turn out like even a Zen master, a Chan master, is an expert in the Pure Land tradition. And also when I was reading, I learned it from Abbott in the past, but I never really read into the text. So he invited us to meditate into the lotus, like how coming out from the impurity emerged like purity and wisdoms. But then in the subtext, it talk about the 10 wisdoms of shared shutness. So I realized maybe actually this is a very good guidance for leadership. For organizational continuity, because when we talk about the 10 wisdoms of shared shutness, shared nature, shared great endeavors like contemplation, missions, encompassing sufficiency, shared interests, shared meditative insight, shared voice, shared enlightenment. Maybe that's what like the Buddhist transmissions or the Buddhist successions require in order to be able to prosper from generations to generation. And I've been thinking about, like, I have a business background. I'm a finance guy in my past life. Like, are there any good example from the business world that really teach us like what really makes sense like for organization continuity, sustainability? A lot of management theory you may have heard in the past, but I found actually this one probably the most relevant. Jim Collins, like he is like from the Stanford Business School. He looked into almost like 1,000 companies, tracked them over 40 years, and then he wrote about 11 of them in this book called Good to Great. And then he has a series, basically investigating how company rise from a startup like to become a great company. And then, like maybe for some of the great companies, the mighty fall will collapse, right? Like we have heard some of these companies in the past. What you realize, maybe these are the kind of the principles. I'm not going to go through them one by one, but very interesting. I find it really Buddhist and very, very Chan in a sense that he talked about for a great company to survive and from the kind of emerging stage to a great company that built to last. He said like these companies are not focusing on like a big surprises. Like they actually going through like a really, really long-term gradual process, doing all the right thing like in a very sustainable way, like incremental processes. Like they have good leadership that different from the egoistic or the narcissistic leadership that we may see in the world. Like he named it like the level 5 leadership could focus on personal humility and very often can sacrifice their own personal egos and desire for the benefit of the continuity of the organization. There's a culture of discipline and accountability. They just like keep doing the flywheel, keep spinning it right, and then like accelerate and doing like better and better. And the management or the leaders in the process, they build a clock, not just tell time. What does it mean? It's like build a culture of excellency that will survive beyond any individual leaders that found the organization at the first place. Of course, they have to confront the brutal facts like of the realities, and also they could use very, very good understandings of opportune events, so they can work with impermanence really well, like for good or for bad. Like so, if there are good events, they manage it well. If there is like a big crisis, they manage it well. looking back at our organization, the organizations that I served, I realized Lady Kara, as Professor Lee mentioned at the very beginning, I would say like she is definitely a visionary level 5 leader. She established Tung Lin Kok Yuen in 1935, and she wrote in her very, very beginning journal, like called the journal of her visit, almost like a pilgrimage to all the sacred mountains in the mainland. She wrote the reason why she established this organization is because like she realized the teachings of the Dharma is the solutions for a chaotic world. And she see all people are equal, but without like being given the opportunities to be educated, like they will not be able to explore their full potential. So that's why like if we can educate them with the Buddhist teachings, then they will have a good family, and then with a good family, you have a good country, then you can change the world. So it is a gradual, but also a process from within. When she established Tung Lin Kok Yuen, it is also very brilliant in a sense that she has given a very, very strong governance culture with the board, complete monastic, and also the lay practitioners as well. So in terms of the strategies or the approaches, like they are focused on the cultivation of Buddhist talents, like practices, of course, like tertiary educations and the primary and secondary educations. There is focus also on publications and counseling. I'm going to fly by some of these examples that I can share with the slides with you later on. But you can see we are talking about 90 years of developments, like from the very, very initials of this like Light of Humankind is a Chinese publications to the modern developments of Buddhist law, which is in Chinese, English, and Spanish. So it's also from print media to online web media to online audio radio stations. So this is 90 years of development and changes adjusting to the needs and also technology available. Of course, in terms of educations, from the very, very original free school for girls in the 1930s to the junior school, to high school, and then later on supporting the University of Hong Kong as well as the global network of university in the world. Our chairman, our honorary chairman, Mr. Robert H. Ho, he said like his ambition is to see centers of Buddhist studies in universities and gradually one by one to develop a link between them, forming a Buddhist knowledge network. I would say like this is also like very visionary in his times and continue to develop over time. And the approach and the language is also very diverse, multidisciplinary, not only focused on the academics, but also interdisciplinary dialogues between like Buddhism and arts, like counseling, as well as like other services. So this is our community work. So this is not an infomercial moment, so don't worry, but it's really trying to illustrate in terms of the responses, like what are actually the considerations when we think about developing to do or not to do, just like what Jim Collins talked about, focusing on not only what to do, but also what not to do in terms of our developments. So community service in terms of counselings, in terms of support for healthcare institutes. I'm going to some of the more kind of interesting exploration. Tung Lin Kok Yuen by itself is non-sectarian, but because of the strong practice of our founders in the Pure Land School, we have actually attracted a lot of good and very, very significant Pure Land School master coming to guide it into practice. Even for the Pure Land School practice, it has been a long journey and evolving process for us. When I read during discussions of the Pure Land tradition, it's quite interesting that the comment is the Pure Land, like even though we can still trace different patriarchs of the Pure Land School, but it's easy or direct to practice, but also free from the bureaucracy in different organization or lineage like the Chan or the Tin Tai school. And the Pure Land practice has been part of the core practice in Tung Lin Kok Yuen for both Hong Kong and Vancouver. And Venerable Gunbun, like his research here on the blue, for those who can read Chinese or someone who want to translate the whole volume into English, this is actually like a PhD thesis about the Pure Land School, and he wrote it, I think it's like in the 30s, if not in the 40s. So, and then some people would say like the Pure Land School or the chanting or the ritual, which Tung Lin Kok Yuen is very good at, as something that is not directly relating to kind of sophisticated practice. Venerable and Abbot Zhang Tit, he recently in an interview, he reminded us like chanting or the ritual should not only focus on the techniques, but it must integrate with practice, and transmitting and promoting Buddhist chanting with practice that is truly auspicious. So the insight I draw from his quote is like even when we are practicing the Pure Land traditions and also the rituals, we should not only focus on the forms, but the substance of really supporting the compassionate act in different practices in different school of lives. The few slides I'm going to share with you later on are 1 minute left. What happened? Really? Really? Whoa. Oh. We have 30 minutes, right? Huh? 20, okay. So I'm going to fly through this very quickly then. So basically what I'm trying to say here is from Tung Lin Kok Yuen, we have affiliated with actually quite a few like great venerable masters in the Tin Tai school, like in the Chan school, in the Pure Land schools. And then you will see over time, this is gradually, like one by one, they come visit and we invite them to come to Tung Lin Kok Yuen for teachings. And then it leads to further developments like overseas as well. So this is like for the Tin Tai school. And then this is like the humanistic Buddhism. So we have strong interactions like with Tai Hui Dai Si and also Venerable Yin Shen. And then of course, I almost forget to mention my own lineage. Venerable Yin Hong, is he still here? Yeah. So the contemporary Chan lineage is also very significant. I think one of the very interesting message here is like if you know of Master Xu Yun's, sometimes when we worry about the declines of Buddhism, like a great master like Venerable Xu Yun can revitalize like all the different schools. He is the successors of the 5 schools of the Chan, and we have Venerable Yin Hong here being also part of the traditions and the Dharma air. And they manifest in very different forms, like into educations, into compassionate care. Okay, so I don't think I have a lot of time, but I here want to share with you like another traditions I have with Palm Village. This is Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh, continuing in Vietnam, focusing on mindfulness, but he has traditions like with the Ninji and the Huayans, the Linji school. Upaya is a Japanese Zen center focusing on the chaplaincy and also compassionate acts. This is like from the Japanese tradition. One thing that I realize is quite interesting. Like so far, my affiliation is with the Chan school, and if you learn something from one Chan school, it will actually be quite easy to learn from other lineage in different Chan school. When I was trying to recite the Japanese version of the Heart Sutra, originally I have no idea what's going on, and then I find the Chinese references. And then this is like the canon, the Guanyin 10 lines. Like originally, I don't know what the Japanese really about, but once I find the Chinese, I actually have been, this is actually the first verse I learned about Buddhism when I was a kid. And then of course, the Thich Nhat Hanh Palm Village 5 Contemplation is just the Chinese version of Sekchen Mgun for before we have all our meals. So I'm going to wrap up here and talk about some of the key observations when we're thinking about the Buddhist traditions and successions. My key observations, and further developments would be realizing like the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha arise from sufferings and response with compassionate actions. And the part of the very significant developments is like our moral and spiritual authorities arise from embodied practice with solid foundation. We talk about like how it is a gradual, like heart-to-heart process in trusting our body, mind, and speech to the triple germs. The Dharma must be steadfast and connected, or else we will lose our identities. Like when we swing by all the conversations about AI, about like new technologies, the core is still the tradition, practice, and the teachings of the Buddha. Grand Masters, of course, are rare gems. They are like the level 5 leaders. Even like one achieved practitioners is sufficient to inspire and vitalize like the traditions. But the Dharma does not arise independently. So all of you, like including all their disciples, are the supportive conditions to support their transmissions of the Dharma. And then I will probably conclude with this last remark from Venerable Aiting, like when he commenting on the great work of Lady Kara. He commented that like back then, like for the Buddhist practitioners, they may have certain kind of comparisons, like supporting or kind of pushing down one traditions over the other, or supporting one particular sect over the others. But Lady Kara, she respects all different traditions and without any comparison, and trying to integrate them all together. And she always said all the different traditions must have the traditional moral foundation, like with new knowledge. And the Tung Lin Kok Yuen she founded and established followed these understandings and goals and missions of new knowledge and traditional practice. So that's all I have. How much time we still have?
Thank you very much, Dr. Ng, for your presentation. I think we have time now for around 3 questions from the audience.
Thank you for your presentation and your reflections as well. I found it quite interesting when you started to reflect on what makes a great corporation and why this might be Buddhist. And it made me think, because in early Buddhist literature, when Buddhism became economically successful, basically what they did was they turned what we could call the symbolic capital of karma. For example, the fact that you are born in with a good social standing, perhaps you're wealthy, a merchant, say, and explain that as these individuals having done good deeds in the past. And I just wondered what you think, or how this is perhaps explained today. How is the role of karma viewed in relation to economic success? And there was just one particular point in that list that you had. So you said that when a leader privileges the corporation, namely privileges the success of the business, and you cited this as an instance of that they have no ego. And I just wondered if, when we look around us at the current corporate state of affairs and perhaps the effects that capitalism has had on the world in which we live, whether that can actually be maintained from a Buddhist perspective.
Great, thank you. Thank you for your sharing. I think on the first note, it may not be directly related to what we discussed today, but of course, from the discussions in Buddhist economics and also the materialistic kind of perspectives, there's always kind of explorations between guna, karma, and wealth, right? Which one is explaining what? Of course, in the early Buddhism literature, there are a lot of discussions about what is actually the proper use of wealth, the proper generations of wealth that could contribute to good karma. Yeah, so I think it's quite hard to backwardly explain the consequence with the causes. Like, so someone is wealthy, does it mean that they have good karma or not? But from what I'm trying to share here in this presentation, and also the discussions in Buddhist economics, is, okay, now as a matter of fact, like, you have the wealth, like you are the one endowed with all the resources. How could you use it well, and whether that is a reflection of your wisdom and compassion, and that will continue the story. So it's like almost like the past and present, and then like what would be the future, and that considerations of karma and guna will continue. So hopefully that would address like the response to the first part. The second part is quite interesting, particularly when we think about like what does it mean for the moral worth or the moral strength of any organization. What I find interesting is, like, even for the corporates, like when it comes to the successful corporates, the researcher noticing for companies or great organizations really built to last, you really need to have like stronger moral values and moral worth beyond like one leader's ego or desired. So I think that's also part of the messages as well. So for corporates that lead by leaders or value that is selfish or material driven, then that's also part of the reason why when Jim Collins are writing about how the mighty fall, right? You lead to hubris, like leads to selfish motivations and ignorance of the needs of the communities and your company, and then eventually lead to an organizational downfall. So I think that is also quite interesting as well. Yeah. The moral integrity, as well as like how like a leader connects with rest of the organization and the community, the need of the community.
How it is Buddhist? How it is Buddhist?
The Buddhists have two dimensions. Like the first dimension is the moral values, like the virtues. So we talk about our moral disciplines, how we see our actions will lead to the good karma or like the good consequence that have an impact on oneself and also the others. So that's why like that is very fundamentally the threefold trainings like of our greed, hatred, and delusion. The second part of it is like how Buddhist wisdom can guide us to look at the interdependency nature of an individual and an organization. So while the modern organization focus on the individualistic development, like that a certain kind of corporate leader worth billion, whereas like the worker may have a huge salary gap because like they are so brilliant, they are so smart, but ignoring the contributions and the welfare or the well-beings of all the other, even the community contributing to it, right? Then the corporate success, but the community is not following, is not catching up at the expense of the success of a certain corporate of an individual. So the independency is Buddhist, which probably is not fully discussed in many corporate discussion right now.
Hello, thank you so much for a very interesting presentation. I guess my question will also be a follow-up of two previous ones. I was also really intrigued by mentioning of Buddhist philosophy in relation to business. So I just wanted to ask, like, maybe you have like experience of consulting like some CEOs or some companies who then like applied this methods in the work and that it would benefit them better, and other like certain types of business that are like more can benefit more from this type of managing.
Yeah, thank you for your questions. I think one of the probably also what we're trying to explore here is like how Buddhists and Buddhist organization can sustain over time, and of course we can draw some of the insights to any other organization as well. I think part of the conversation is like what is actually driving the organization, and also like for the individuals involved in the organizations, how do we take care of their well-beings? Like while we are focusing on even for charitable purposes, like we try to do goods, like we're trying to be successful, like in whatever we're doing, even for nonprofit or charitable acts. Like how do we manage it? How do we manage the inner journey that we are going through? Like how do we stick close to our vision and missions? How do we stick close to our original intent? I think that is a journey all the philanthropists, like the practitioners, like the monastics, I think, as well as all the other organizational leaders, like, are exploring. And then, like, after all the hard work, like, are we doing what we're trying to do? And I think one of the insight being shared here is it's not as a calculated process as we think. Like you have the determinations, like you have the wisdom, but it's also depending on like all the conditions. But even like if you look at all the backdrops of all the schools in the contemporary Chinese Buddhism, like the wars, the chaos actually leads to more prosperous developments of Buddhism. So there's no need for despair or frustration, because even the mud will allow the lotus to blossom. But how to turn the mud into the lotus is the wisdom, and it takes time. And whether we feel comfortable to deal with the messiness, the ugliness of the mud, and allow the lotus to emerge.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much
Thank you.
for your presentation and the conversation.